Queensland's opposition is calling for a probe into secret emails sent by Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk to determine whether she broke her own integrity rules. Joining me live from Longreach this morning is Queensland's opposition leader David Crisafulli. David, appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us this morning. So Anastasia Palaszczuk says that she never breached the ministerial code, and the quote is, "to her knowledge" here. And for the folks at home, this is regarding to the use of private email accounts to conduct work. Language seems to have shifted here a bit. Do you believe that she's in contempt?
It sounds like weasel words from where we're watching, and this can all be cleared up. The Premier just has to release those emails, and that will put it to bed one way or another. And look, I'm not asking her to release private emails as a normal person. She's entitled to her privacy like every Queenslander is. But there are emails there that were used for government business, conducting conversations about the suitability of people for positions within the bureaucracy, and we don't know what the others say. Now, we're told there are about 20 of them, so it's pretty simple. Release those emails and then the problem can all go away.
All right, well, it seems to be hardly Hillary Clinton-esque here by using private email accounts to give up potentially national security secrets. What are you hoping to uncover?
A bit of integrity in government, and I think that matters, Peter. And what we're calling for now is for the State Archivist to come in and release them and have a look at it, because we have seen a denial that these things existed for a long time. And the defence that, hey, look, this is 5 years ago, that doesn't cut the mustard. They're happy to trawl back through the records of previous governments dating back a decade. What we want is to know that the conduct of the Premier today is squeaky clean. And we haven't got that. We've got flip-flopping all over the place. We want to see what's in those emails. Now, she said if there's an allegation to put it, so there's a pretty simple allegation, and that is what we believe that there's things in those emails that she doesn't want everyday Queenslanders to see. And that looks and smells very dodgy from where we're sitting. Now, this could all be cleaned up. Release them today, and then we can have a look and see what was said, when it was said, and how it relates to official government business. The reason why the Right to Information Act exists is to stop this sort of behaviour going. Integrity in government matters, and we're going to make it a focal point.
OK, just still with the Premier at the moment, she's involved again in a bit of a war of words between the Federal Treasurer. Essentially, it's over JobKeeper. It's going to end in the end of March. You're in Longreach at the moment. You know how tough business is doing it. What do you believe is needed beyond March?
We've been very clear that we would like to see Canberra's assistance continue, particularly for sectors in places like Cairns and the Gold Coast that rely so heavily on tourism. So we're not walking away from that. The problem with the Premier's conduct and this behaviour is as though it only relies on Canberra. We've got a role to play as well. The state government payroll tax bill is due in a month. The state government marina berth bills up there are due right now. There are a raft of assistance measures that I've seen other states put in place that we haven't stepped up to the plate. So you can't cry Canberra every time something happens that you're not pleased with. By all means, be forceful advocates. That's part of the role of any state premier. But you've also got to look after your own backyard. You can't just whinge for someone else to step up to the mark, and that's the balance that we're pushing for her to find.
But it sounds like you're kind of with her then. You've got similar points of view in that there's going to have to be more targeted support needed beyond March, which is exactly what the Treasurer, the Prime Minister and the Federal Government has said is going to happen.
So why not then step up to the plate and look after our own backyard and give some certainty to these businesses in their hour of need? I'm never going to walk away from a fight with the nation's capital if it's right for Queensland. That's what good advocacy looks like. But you've also got to do the things that you control. And to suggest that the only panacea to fix the ills of those businesses in those regions that rely so heavily on tourism, that the only solution is for Canberra to continue JobKeeper indefinitely, that's not the case. We want to see targeted support out of Canberra. We also want the state government to get off their backside and do something as well, rather than just cry Canberra constantly.
Would you be giving the $30 million back to the New South Wales government for its quarantine bill?
Tell you what I wouldn't do, Peter. I wouldn't carry on like a childish behaviour, throwing the toys out of the cot, ripping a bill on live TV. That's no way to conduct yourself. So if the state think that the bill doesn't stack up, mount the case properly. Don't conduct yourself like some sort of toddler throwing a tantrum. That's what I'd be doing.
Well, you're in Longreach at the moment, David. It's actually a place that surprisingly had done quite well over the Christmas break, given that tourism at the moment is in such trouble, not just in Queensland, but nationwide. What are you finding there, and in particular when it comes to farmers? I was reading a report last night, actually, in the Washington Post that talked about how some farmers in Queensland have basically had to burn their crops because they can't get any work. They can't get workers, I should say, can't get fruit pickers out. So it's cheaper for them to basically burn their produce.
Peter, Queenslanders have rallied, and many of the smaller destinations and those that are closer to the population centres have done well. The tourism centres that are struggling a bit are the Gold Coast and the Cairns and the Whitsundays that rely on those higher volume, lower yield destinations. In terms of agriculture, though, this really is their hour of need. We have farmers making decisions right now not to plant crops because they don't believe they can get the workers to pick it. We have the prospect of fruit rotting on trees because there is no ability to get labour to pick it. We have farmers here in Longreach that after 10 years of drought, they finally get a bit of rain and they've got a grasshopper plague that's come in and absolutely wiped out the feed within a month's window. It's tough times. It's tough times on the land. And I think that there needs to be an acknowledgement that regional Queensland provides so much opportunity. Regional Australia provides so much opportunity. They just need a bit of a break at the moment after what's been a pretty tough time.
The problem is it's difficult to get workers out there. It's difficult to get people out there that don't want to go out and pick fruit for, a couple of bucks an hour.
Yeah, but Peter, it's a combination of things. Obviously, there's the skilled worker crisis. There's the fact that with coronavirus, it's been very difficult to get people in. But there's also the opportunity for us to tap into a raft of people who've probably got a bit of nostalgia about the bush and have never considered coming out for that gap year or doing something different. There are real opportunities in places like this. They're great towns. They're full of great people, and there are great opportunities. And we owe it to these farmers to be able to give them some hope for the future.
David, you've got a hell of a job ahead of you taking on one of the most successful premiers in Australian history. She actually increased her majority at the last election. Your party has been dogged by infighting over the years. What is your plan to turn it around, and what are you going to do with those so-called bully boys that Deb Frecklington referred to last election?
Peter, I don't underestimate how big the challenge is, that's for sure, and I believe she's a formidable opponent. But what I'm going to do is sell an alternative vision for Queensland that focuses on the things that we've done well in the past, but also taps into those new opportunities into the future. But first, I've got to get my mob fit for government, and that's no easy task. But we've got to get back to a relationship where each organisational wing and the parliamentary wing know their roles and responsibilities, and it's built on respect. And we've got to take the members with us, and we've got to reconnect with Queensland. And if we can do that, and if we can get ourselves fit for office, we can then go to the people of Queensland and say, we're ready for this. So this is a big risk for me. I'm putting everything on the line. I'm demanding reform of my party in the same way that Wayne Goss did of the Labor Party in the late 80s, and 20 years later, David Cameron did in the UK. It's got to happen. And if we can do that, we can provide generational government for this state that starts building dams and getting agriculture going again, that provides certainty for the mining industry, that opens up opportunities for tourism in national parks that have squandered and been left on the wayside. There is a golden opportunity for this state. We've just got to get the policy settings right. We've got to get our house in order, and then we've got to govern with humility, decency and respect to get the state back humming. OK. Have you ever used a private email account for work, David? No, Peter, and if I had, I'd have no problems releasing them. I'd have no problems releasing them if they were for government business, because I reckon that's the honourable thing to do. And I think the Premier's got about 24 hours to do that. Otherwise, there's going to be a state that's going to come looking for them.